9 hours ago, the world crossed a line it was never meant to cross. NATO has launched the largest counterforce strike in human history. Russia's nuclear fields burn. Command bunkers are silent, and millions of people across the globe wait for a second wave that may never come. The war has entered its deadliest phase, the hour when silence is as terrifying as fire. Now, the next 3 hours will determine whether civilization ends or barely survives. This is hour 9. Across Europe and North America, electrical grids begin to fail, not from attacks, but from overload. Electromagnetic shock from hundreds of detonations has crippled transformers. Grid operators attempt to isolate regions, but automated protections misfire. Cities blink out one by one: Berlin, Warsaw, London, New York. Within minutes, 40% of NATO's electrical grid is down. Hospitals switch to emergency generators. Airports go dark. GPS networks degrade. Civilization, even without more nuclear fire, begins to fracture. In living rooms, millions ask the same question: what comes next? While NATO watches its grid fail, Russia is losing something far more crucial: its command system. The explosion of early warning radars at Olenogorsk and Myshilevka has blinded the Russian nuclear network. Russia's satellite uplink over Siberia drops offline. Communication lines between major military districts disconnect. The Kremlin receives contradictory reports. Kozelsk, silos destroyed. Tatishchevo, unresponsive. Submarine fleet status unknown. General staff bunker compromised. For the first time in the war, Russia cannot see what NATO is doing. And in nuclear strategy, blindness is death. Inside Russia's backup command bunkers, chaos takes hold. Without the Kremlin, authority falls to regional commanders, many of whom have partial information, damaged networks, and no confirmation of Moscow's survival. Do they launch? Do they wait? Do they assume Russia is already destroyed? This is the nightmare NATO planners feared for 70 years. A decentralized nuclear response, unstoppable, unpredictable. Some commanders request launch authority, others refuse. One group falsely reports that NATO ground forces have entered Kaliningrad. Misinformation spreads faster than truth, and NATO's satellites see only the edges of it. The world is operating blind. In Brussels, NATO leaders confront a new nightmare. If Russia's communication system is collapsing, then the chance of an unauthorized launch increases every minute. The United States urges immediate action. We must neutralize surviving Russian missiles before a rogue commander fires. France warns, another strike might guarantee a full retaliation. The United Kingdom argues, if their command is down, Russia cannot negotiate. We must not miscalculate. Poland and the Baltics again demand maximum force. Finish the strike? If we wait, they hit us first. Every option risks global annihilation. Do nothing, and risk a rogue Russian launch, strike again, and guarantee Russia believes NATO seeks total destruction. The clock is moving, and at this hour, hesitation kills. For billions watching the war unfold, the world suddenly goes silent. Cell networks collapse, satellite phones fail, social media platforms lose connectivity. Only military communication lines remain, and even those flicker. In Canada, families huddle around battery radios. In France, people gather in darkened subway stations. In Japan, commuters stare at black digital screens. For the first time in modern history, the information age shuts down. People are no longer witnesses. They are isolated. Fear becomes the new medium. Or at 9 hours, 50 minutes, the world nearly ends. NORAD radars detect a mass launch from northern Russia. Trajectory, Western Europe. Time to impact, 13 minutes. NATO goes to DEFCON 1. Commanders brace for the second wave. U.S. submarines prepare for counterstrike. French and British nuclear forces disperse. But then, the signal disappears. reappears, shifts, breaks. Engineers realize the truth. It wasn't a missile launch. It was debris, hundreds of fragments from NATO's earlier strike, rising from atmospheric shock waves and confusing radar returns. The world nearly died because of its own destruction. Inside Russia's remaining command bunkers, a fierce argument erupts. We must retaliate now before we lose everything. We no longer know who is alive. We cannot launch blindly. Their intelligence is broken. Their radars are gone. Their command chain is severed. But one fact remains. Russia still has surviving missiles, mobile ICBMs in the Urals, a few surviving submarines, airdropped weapons, enough to kill millions. The question is, will they fire or will they wait? Russia sends a single encrypted message to NATO. Verify ceasefire terms. NATO does not respond immediately. Their satellite relay is down, and so, for 14 minutes, Russia waits in silence, believing NATO may be preparing another strike. As the war reaches its 10th hour, NATO believes Russia may launch at any moment. Russia believes NATO has already launched. Civilization hangs on miscommunication, on broken networks, damaged satellites, dying sensors. The next decisions will define the next 1,000 years. And in the bunkers beneath Moscow, a surviving Russian general reaches for the launch key. But before he turns it, a voice breaks through the darkness, a single operator shouting, "Wait! Signal from NATO! Coming through!" The world moves into its next hour, the most dangerous yet. At exactly 10 hours and 5 minutes, a fragment of a communication signal reaches a Russian backup bunker outside Yamantau. It is distorted, incomplete, barely audible, but it carries one critical phrase: NATO, ceasefire, communication, pending. Inside the bunker, commanders freeze. Is it real? Is it a deception? Is it a corrupted fragment from a destroyed satellite? The general holding the launch key demands verification, but verification is impossible. Russia's communication grid is shattered. Its satellites are gone. Its fiber lines melted. For the first time in the war, a single fragment of radio static may determine the fate of humanity. The Russian general faces the most consequential decision in the history of nuclear warfare. He still commands a handful of remaining mobile ICBMs in the Ural forests, submarines hiding beneath the Arctic ice, 2 160 bombers loaded with air-launched nuclear missiles, enough firepower to shatter Europe. But if he launches, NATO will unleash the rest of its arsenal. The world will end within the hour. If he waits, Russia may already be defeated. He may be handing total victory to NATO. Then, a young officer, voice shaking, says quietly, "Sir, if NATO wanted us dead, they would not send a message first." The general closes his eyes. For a moment, the bunker is silent, and the world waits with them. Inside NATO headquarters, engineers confirm what Russia barely received. A ceasefire relay request, sent minutes earlier, was not delivered properly due to satellite degradation. NATO urgently attempts a second transmission, but constant solar interference and EMP distortion corrupts the signal. NATO's highest priority becomes get a stable message through before Russia launches in confusion. Every second counts. Backup ground stations in Norway, the UK, and Poland attempt multiple frequency bands. Some fail, some distort. One burns out completely. Then, a French military satellite stabilizes its orbit long enough to transmit a narrow band burst towards central Russia. The message reads, "Ceasefire channel open. Confirm status." It will take 37 seconds to reach Russian territory. If it survives, atmospheric interference. 37 seconds that may decide whether the next missiles launched are diplomatic signals or nuclear fire. Across the planet, humanity waits. In Warsaw, families huddle in metro stations, radios held close. In Toronto, Churches overflow with silent crowds praying in darkness. In Berlin, emergency broadcast screens show only one message: await official instruction. People check their watches, count seconds, look toward the sky. For the first time since the war began, the world's greatest superpowers are silent, and silence, right now, is terrifying. In the Arctic Ocean, a Russian Bore-class ballistic missile submarine receives echoes of NATO's ceasefire signal, distorted, damaged, split into 3 fragments. But one phrase is unmistakable: ceasefire channel open. The submarine captain faces his own nightmare. If Moscow is gone, if command is dead, if the ceasefire is a trick, he alone could decide whether millions live or die. The crew waits, breath frozen. After 40 seconds, he transmits one message to Northern Fleet HQ: stand by, awaiting confirmation. This single act, a choice not to fire, may have just saved a continent. While Russia hesitates, tensions erupt inside NATO leadership. Poland delivers a furious message: they destroyed our cities. Do not negotiate until their remaining missiles are neutralized. The Baltic states join the demand. The U.S. counters sharply. If we strike again, Russia launches, we lose everything. Germany urges immediate ceasefire. France supports diplomatic contact. Canada warns the window is closing. The alliance fractures, not in strategy, but in fear. NATO must act together, or the war resumes instantly. 10 hours and 30 minutes into the war, NORAD detects another mass launch from Russia. Trajectory: North Atlantic. Direction: United States. Time to impact: 14 minutes. NATO goes red. Pilots scramble into fighter jets. U.S. submarines prepare emergency launch counters. A commander screams, "Confirm now! Is this real or another debris bloom?" The radar image flickers, splits, reforms. An engineer shouts, "It's the ionosphere. Debris is refracting heat signatures." The alarm is canceled. For the second time in 30 minutes, the world nearly ends because of its own destruction. After nearly an hour of silence, a message finally emerges from deep inside Russia. It is not from the president, not from the defense minister, but from a surviving Kremlin command node operating under emergency power. The message is short: ceasefire, negotiations. Possible. Not agreement, not acceptance, just possible. For NATO, it's enough. For the world, it's a miracle. But for Russia's remaining rogue commanders, it may not be acceptable. In the forests east of Yekaterinburg, a Russian mobile ICBM crew receives outdated orders. Prepare for launch. They have no network connection, no updates, no verification. All they know is that their homeland is burning. Their commander orders the missile erector to raise. Launch codes are prepared. One of the crew whispers, "What if the war is over?" Another replies, "What if it's not?" The commanders debate. The world holds its breath. Then, an emergency message arrives late, weak but intact. Stand down. Ceasefire in progress. The missile lowers. A global catastrophe is avoided by seconds. The war has not ended, but the unthinkable has been avoided, for now. Both sides remain armed. Both sides remain terrified. Both sides have seen their networks collapse, their radars fail, their leaders vanish into bunkers. And yet, for the first time in 11 hours, the world is no longer seconds away from extinction. But the most dangerous hour is still ahead, because in the ruins of Moscow, a surviving commander is about to make a choice, one that could restart the war or finally end it forever. At 11 hours and 10 minutes into the war, Moscow is no longer a functioning capital. Smoke blankets the skyline. Entire districts lie in ruins. Communications are dead, no civilian broadcasts, no government statements, only fire and silence. Beneath the city, in a hardened command bunker, A lone Russian strategic commander stands over a flickering console. His uniform is torn, his staff half missing, his orders unclear. He has witnessed the destruction of his nation's nuclear arsenal. He has heard fragments of ceasefire messages, but no official directive. He faces a choice no human should ever face: launch the remaining weapons or surrender the last fragments of Russian strategic power. And above him, the world waits for his decision. A single RS-24 Yars missile remains operational in the region, housed in a mobile launcher protected deep in the forests west of Perm. It is one of the last weapons Russia can still fire, one that could devastate Berlin, Paris, or London. The commander is authorized to use it if he believes Russia is in immediate danger. But what is danger when the country is already burning? A junior officer approaches him, voice trembling. "Sir, if we fire now, NATO will finish us. There will be nothing left." The commander stares at the blinking launch panel. He lifts the protective cover. His finger hovers over the key. And then, a deep shudder shakes the bunker. For a moment, everyone thinks it's another blast. But it's something else. It's the surviving Russian communications grid coming back online. A single green light. A heartbeat of hope. At last, after nearly 3 hours of corrupted transmissions, a secured military band stabilizes. The ceasefire message that NATO has been desperately sending all hour finally arrives intact. Stand down. Ceasefire negotiation channel active. No further strikes. For the Russian commander, it is the first unbroken communication since Moscow was hit. He listens to it twice, 3 times, 4 times, no threats, no deception, no attack warnings, just one phrase repeated: stand down. He lowers the missile launch key. The world moves 1 inch back from the edge of annihilation. In Washington, the president faces an impossible dilemma. American analysts warn, if Russia is stalling, if the ceasefire is a trap, if rogue commanders still hold launch authority, then the U.S. must strike first. Pentagon advisors urge a disarming follow-up strike. European leaders beg for restraint. The UK recommends holding fire but preparing a synchronized response. The president stands, places both hands on the table, and speaks. We will not end the world on a guess. If Russia fires, we answer. Until then, hold position. A collective sigh passes through the room. For the first time in the war, restraint becomes more powerful than force. Around the world, the physical systems that hold civilization together begin to collapse. Power grids flicker across Europe. GPS data becomes unreliable. Satellite imagery is patchy. Maritime communication bands fail. Nuclear plants shift to emergency cooling. In New Delhi, hospital generators struggle to stay on. In Tokyo, flights are grounded indefinitely. In Cairo, riots break out as people fear a second strike. Humanity stands between panic and paralysis. But then, slowly, a new kind of message begins to circulate. Possible ceasefire. Await confirmation. People cling to those words like a lifeline. 20 minutes before the 12th hour, it finally happens. A secure NATO-Russia communication channel stabilizes long enough for a direct message. The Russian commander transmits, "This is Strategic Command Node 3. We are standing by. Confirm ceasefire." NATO responds, "Confirmed. Ceasefire in effect. Do not launch." Then, for the first time since the war began, both sides repeat the same phrase: standing down. It is not peace, not trust, not safety, but it is the beginning of the end of the war. 12 hours after the first explosions, the deadliest conflict in human history reaches a fragile pause. Missile crews secure their warheads. Bombers return to base. Submarines lower missile tubes. Satellites re-establish partial contact. A global war has not ended, but global annihilation has been stopped. Barely. In shelters across the world, people emerge slowly, as if stepping out after a storm. Parents hold children, strangers embrace. Phones ring for the first time in hours, and atop a broken world, leaders on both sides prepare for what comes next. The blame, the funerals, the fallout, the negotiations, the reckoning. But for now, in this single fragile moment, humanity still exists. In just 12 hours, millions are gone, cities erased, governments destroyed, the world forever changed. And yet, it could have been worse, so much worse. A handful of individuals, some in bunkers, some on submarines, some in distant command rooms, chose not to fire, chose to wait, to listen, to stand down. And because of that, life continues. But the peace that follows will not be simple, not clean, not certain. This was only the opening act of World War III. The next phase, political collapse, economic implosion, civil unrest, resource wars, and nuclear fallout, is still ahead. The 12-hour nightmare is over, but the real war is just beginning.